Hi guys, Aka here. So, there has been quite a bit of excitement with the update that allows us to upgrade Ares and Achaemenidae gear to Imperial and Parthian gear. And we are all pretty excited about this. Not quite as excited as we would have been if Evony, say, gave us Civ gear, but still pretty excited. Now, there might be quite a few of you looking at this new gear and asking yourselves, is it worth it? Is it really worth me going through the trouble and the hassle to get these forged certificates to upgrade these things? So that's what we're going to try and answer here. For anyone that hasn't seen my last video on this update, and you should have, by the way, that's why you should be subscribed if you aren't already. Will make it easier for you not to miss these things. But in that video, I showed that I fortunately already had a stash of the luxury boxes in my inventory. So I had quite a few master certificates to give me a bit of a head start. How many do you say? Well, enough for me to do this. Yeah, pretty cool, right? 3 Parthian pieces on my wall general, which is nice. But wait, there's more. I also had enough master certificates for me to do this. Yep, full Parthian gear on my sub-general, which I must say is pretty cool. But before we go into whether these updates are actually worth doing or not, first of all, let's talk about what you get when you actually upgrade the gear. The first thing that you get when you upgrade your gear to either Parthian or Imperial gear is you get a power increase. By upgrading each piece of gear, you will gain 65,200 points to your general's power. And if you're doing that for all 6 pieces on your general, then that would add up to quite a bit. The immediate benefit of being able to increase your general's power like this is that for anyone that hasn't yet made the victory column requirements for you to get 2 generals at 5.8 million power, upgrading this gear will help you out. It will certainly make it easier for you to cross that hurdle and get into K36. So that's the first thing that you get when you upgrade the gear. The next thing is that, of course, by upgrading the gear, you get increased stats. Your buffs are increased a bit, your debuffs are increased a bit. From what I've seen so far, depending on the stats, that increase is anywhere between 3 and 8%. And as you can imagine, that can stack up pretty quickly. So that's it for the stats. In addition to the stats, you also get an increase to the set attributes. The set attributes are identical to what you have for Ares and Achaemenidae gear, just increased. So you get a bit more in the set attributes with the new Parthian and Imperial gear. One thing people have asked me about, and unfortunately we don't get, is that you don't get an increased cap to your refines. The refining cap is still at 25%, which kind of makes sense because if Civ gear is 30, there's pretty much no way that they would have made this on the same level as Civ gear. So that pretty much covers what you get when you do this upgrade to the next level gear. Now, for the question about whether it is worth it or not, the first thing is that will depend on the general that you're doing the upgrade on. If you're doing the upgrade on, say, an attacking general, and you are going 1 piece at a time, then the increases that you will get will be a bit on the minimal side. So you will get 3% here, 5% here, 7% here, that kind of thing. And while every little bit helps, considering the grind you would need to go through to get the master certificates, maybe upgrading on an attacking general might not be the immediate priority. At least in my opinion. In my opinion, when you are first starting to look at upgrading your gear to either Imperial or Parthian gear, I think that your primary focus should be defensive. Okay? So, you should be looking to upgrade things on your world general, or you should be looking to upgrade things on your sub-generals. And as you can see, that's the option that I went with. Now, let's look at the sub-generals. So, when you're upgrading the gear on your sub-general, what can you expect? Now, I have done the upgrade on this sub-general to full Parthian set. And of course, I have been kind and gracious enough to put the numbers together for you lovely people. You can thank me later. Okay, here is the increase you get when you upgrade the gear on your sub-general from full Achaemenidae to full Parthian. And of course, these stats include the increase in the set attributes that you get as well. Now, one thing to note is that depending on the weapon that you have on your sub-general, it might be a bit different, okay? But generally, you'll be looking at something like this. Now, in my opinion, while this might look like a modest increase, I think it's actually okay because it stacks up. What we are looking at now are the increases you get for one general. But what happens when, let's say, you have two generals with full Parthian? Yep, that's right. I did two. So, having done these two generals, this is the increase in debuffs that I got. And you can see that it's starting to look a bit more decent. I still have 8 subs left to go. Of course, that will take a long time to get all the certificates you need to get them fully dressed up in Parthian gear. But by the time you've done all your subs, whether that's 8, 9, 10, 11, or however many you might have, the increase in debuffs do stack up. And for someone like me, I'm always happy to take whatever boost I can to my defense. So, in my opinion, I would say that this update is actually worth it. Once you have looked at your defensive possibilities, then you can now extend that to your attacking generals. But hang on though, because there are a few things that you need to take caution of when you are looking to upgrade your gear to either Imperial or Parthian. The first one is that when I did the previous video on this update and I was upgrading my gear, I instinctively thought that once you had the ability to get either Ares or Achaemenidae gear, then upgrading the gear to Parthian or Imperial would not be an issue. I felt that it was the same requirements that you needed except for the master certificates. Not so, okay? As you can see here, depending on the gear that you're upgrading, there are still additional requirements that you might need to meet for you to upgrade that gear. In my case, I had to upgrade my pasture to level 33 to clear the requirements to upgrade one piece. In another case, I had to go into my academy and finish up one particular research before I got the ability to upgrade that gear. So keep that in mind that when you are going to do these upgrades, you might still have some requirements that you might need to complete before you can upgrade them. The second thing that you need to keep in mind when you are going to do upgrades on your gear is that by upgrading your gear to either Parthian or Imperial, you will break the set attributes that you had already on your Ares and Achaemenidae sets, depending on how many pieces you had on your general. And to an extent, that makes sense because they are different sets. Let me illustrate what I mean. I'm going to come to my sub-general, okay? I'm going to take the axe off, right? Then I'm going to come to this general, full Achaemenidae set, okay? If we look at it, you can see that I have the full 6-piece attribute on it, Fine. If I take it off and I replace it with the Parthian axe, okay, you can see the 6-piece attribute is gone. So this is something that you need to pay attention to when you are doing your upgrades. Whether it's the 6-piece set attribute that you have or the 2-piece set attribute, if you are upgrading the gear, you will break that set attribute. Of course, Parthian and Imperial gear have pretty much identical set attributes except for increased numbers. So by the time you complete the upgrade, you will get that set attribute again. But in the meantime, it will be broken. That's why I would advise that if you plan on upgrading your gear, that you save up the certificates that you have for you to be able to upgrade all the pieces that you need to upgrade in order for you to maintain that set attribute. Whether you have the 2-piece set attribute or the 6-piece, save up your certificates until you are able to upgrade all those necessary pieces together. That way, you can maintain your set attribute. Again, I would like to point out that these new gear pieces are not as strong as Civ gear. So if you did have plans on getting Civ gear, yeah, you can still keep your plans going on. But for a lot of people that don't have access to full Civ gear or at all, upgrading to these new gears is actually a pretty okay option. So I would say that the upgrade is definitely worth it. Just make sure that you plan it right so that you get everything done in a way that is 100% beneficial to you. That's it for me, guys. Thank you very much. Aka signing out.